So there is a 180-pound difference between this first pull right here and then the second pull. So the question is, what adjustment did I make so that I could get the second pull? The point, by the way, is not the weight on the bar. People lift less than these weights here, and many people deadlift much more than these weights here. The point is the difference in the weight being pulled in these two clips. The second pull is something like 40 to 50% heavier than the first pull, and I'm not gaming it. 405 pounds, that first pull, is right on the edge of what I can pull without making this particular adjustment that we're going to talk about. If the bar goes to 445 pounds, only like a 10% increase, I cannot even budge the bar off the floor without making this adjustment. So what is it? What's the change? What's the adjustment? Here's a hint, it's not the belt. Sure, the belt is a useful tool, but right here I'm pulling 495 pounds relatively smoothly, still without a belt. But I have already made the other change that we're talking about, and to be fair, that change is a little bit tougher to see. The change I've made, the adjustment I've made is to my grip. And the key point here, the key takeaway is don't start deadlifting until you get your grip right. Now, there are 3 ways to commit this error, 3 ways to get your grip wrong. And the last version of this error is probably the most subtle. So let's get the easiest error out of the way first. Now, real quick, what does a failing grip, what does a compromised grip look like? It's worth noting that if your grip is starting to fail, you might not notice it right away, but what you will start to notice, what you will realize is that either A, your back is starting to flex as you pull the bar off the floor, B, you can't quite lock out the lift, right? You can get close to lockout, but you can't quite finish the pull, or C, the weight simply feels heavier than it should. But with this last part, unfortunately, you're probably not going to notice that until you change your grip and suddenly the weight actually is significantly easier to pull off the floor. Error number 1. It might not be the most interesting error, but man is it important and man is it easy to fix. Error number 1 is not using chalk. You need to use chalk when deadlifting. If you're not using chalk, you're not deadlifting. You're just doing some strange barbell movement that nobody who is good at deadlifting actually cares about because they all use chalk. So use chalk. Rock climbers use it, gymnasts use it, lifters use it. If your gym doesn't allow chalk, then either sneak it in, use liquid chalk, we'll link to some of that below, or find another gym. Those really are your only options. A good recommendation is to simply chalk up when you start warming up your deadlift, and then that'll carry you through your warm-ups most likely, and then chalk up again when you get to your work set or work sets. Error number 2, and this has to do with the grip change that I made early on in this video. Error number 2 is the mistake of not using a modified grip. In that first pull at 405 pounds, I'm using a double overhand grip. In other words, what most people would consider to be a normal grip, let's just say. I reach down, I grab the bar, my palms are facing backwards or they're facing me. It's a pronated grip. That grip is perfectly acceptable when you start to deadlift, but a couple weeks in, you're going to need to start using a modified grip. You're going to need to use, otherwise your deadlift is going to start failing, you're going to need to use either a hook grip, and that's the change that I made. In 405 pounds, that pull, I'm using a double overhand grip. At 585 pounds, and at 495 before that, I am using a hook grip. That is a grip where the thumb goes on the bar first, and then you hook your fingers, specifically your index finger and your middle finger, over the thumb, because the thumb is the weak link in the grip. So you're either going to have to start using a hook grip, or you're going to need to use what's known as a mixed grip or an alternate grip or a switch grip, or you can also certainly use straps if you don't want to either use a hook grip or a mixed grip, but you're going to need to use one of those grips. A double overhand grip is a weak deadlift grip. And lastly, the subtle error, error number 3, accidentally using a compression grip instead of a tension grip. In other words, this has to do with where the bar is actually sitting in the hands or in the fingers. Remember, when you are pushing on something like a bench press or a press, you want the bar positioned against the base of the palm because you're pushing on that object. So you want it sitting as low in the hand as it can because gravity always wants things to sit as low as it can. So if you position it up high by the knuckles up here, what is that going to cause to happen? It's going to cause your wrist to bend backwards. Gravity will always want to make that object sit as low as it possibly can. So positioning it up high is a weak position for a pressing movement. You want to place it in the base of the palm. But if you try to place it in the base of the palm, in other words, if you grab the bar and it looks like you're pushing on something, you've got that bar sitting, now I'm going to call it kind of up high in the hand. It's going to sit up by the base of the palm. The bar is going to want to shift lower. It will shift lower. It will shift down to a position that's down close closer to the fingers. We're not talking about a weird fingertip grip or anything like that, but it's going to shift down closer to the fingers, to that knuckle line right there. So you need to take a tension grip where it looks like, because you actually are doing this, where it looks like you're actually pulling on something. So make sure that you have a tension grip, not a compression grip. If you're trying to grab that bar too high up by the base of the palm, the bar will start shifting downward as you pull, and it will want to continue to shift downward because you didn't have it in the right place in the first place. So make sure that you're using A, chalk, make sure that you're using B, a modified grip, whether it's a hook grip, a switch grip, or straps, and then C, make sure you've got a tension grip. As always, we hope these tips help you get stronger and live better.